Okay, everyone. Hi. We are streaming this because some people who can't be here, and also some people, well, enough said, obviously why we're streaming it. Part of it's to be recorded so that people who are away, like Sam and Annie, wanted to be able to catch up with it, and so we're streaming this. I'm going to give you about one more minute, and then I'm going to start. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask people who offered and led one of the congregational renewal, I'm going to call it offerings, or let's just call it an offering. I'm going to ask them to come up and just kind of share a little bit about why they did, what they were offering, and what they hoped for. And then they're going to come up and then maybe ask somebody that did or participated in that to say something about what they got out of it or what they enjoyed. So we'll go through, there's about 5 or 6 of those, and then Chris will come up and talk a little bit. Obviously we don't have a multimedia thing here. We don't have a projector and a way to kind of do this. If we kind of run out of time and Chris doesn't have enough time, we've talked about maybe another time to where we can have more of a multimedia thing around Chris's sabbatical. Obviously with the pictures he took, which was part of his 100 days with 100 photos, if you recall, was part of his kind of one of the things he wanted to bring out of that sabbatical experience. So I think I've taken enough time, and so we'll mess with this mic about who comes up to talk, whether we need to bring it around to your table, but I also want to make sure that you can be seen by people who are watching. So I guess that's enough. So Susan, do you want to come up first? And again, just kind of say what you did. And Susan did a lot of things, by the way, so, or helped with a lot of things.
Of course, partner in crime. We had the privilege of trying to figure out what a field trip would look like for the church. And Becky and I met on several occasions to go over some possibilities and dates. We had a lot of fun doing it. The first field trip was right here at the church. It was a paint and sip painting exercise. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and we had lots of participants, and most of us had never painted on a board with acrylics. So it was an interesting time, but I think the output was pretty incredible. There's a lot of creative people in this church. The next place we went was
The ball game.
the ball game in August.
And the Rockies won.
Yes, it was kind of a comeback game, probably because we were there. Don't you think, Becky?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. It was an absolute blast.
Fun.
We had a little tiny
just
bit
need to get a
of
little closer.
rain, but that didn't dampen spirits at all. We had a wonderful time at the baseball game. The next was the zoo. That was a spectacular fall day. It was warm, the leaves were turning, and the animals were active. So we had a wonderful time there. And the last thing that we did not that long ago was we visited the Wild Animal Sanctuary in Keensburg. Again, we started with a cool morning, but that day was glorious. It was warm. I have been there several times, and I don't think I've ever seen the animals as active as they were.
Didn't you say the wolves howled?
The wolves howled, didn't they, Bob and Lynn? They have a bus. The owner has a bus at the animal sanctuary that he tours. It's a very large sanctuary, and he tours this entire area on a school bus. And we were like, well, what is he doing on a school bus? And when the doors opened, probably what, 5 or 6, don't you think? Very large Irish wolfhounds exited the bus, and one tiny little dog exited the bus, and all of the wolves, there were probably, how many wolves do you think were there, Bob? 5 or at least, they all started howling.
In their enclosures.
In their enclosures. They were talking to each other, they got everybody all stirred up, and as soon as the dogs hopped back in the bus, then it was all over. But to be able to see the wolves howling was really impressive. So what I did, as hoping that Chris would see the kinds of things that we've been doing while he was away, I put together a little book, and there are people's comments and pictures, because they say far more than I ever could about how the field trips affected people and what they have said about them. So I will give you that to look at. Anyone can take a look. And if there are any additional remarks that you would like to include in this book, just jot it down. There's some extra pages in the back, and they can be included for Chris as well. Anything else?
Just that we may continue some field trips if people are interested, because it was so successful and people really seem to enjoy it, and so it gives me a good excuse to get together with Susan, and so we may have some other offerings.
Yeah, like zoo
Zoo
lights.
lights.
We might do that in November. Right on cue.
All righty.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thanks, you guys. And I'll second the fact that I know they had a lot of cat herding to do with, surveying people. When could you go? When would you go? What would you do? Dates and all those kinds of stuff. So a lot of work and organization for both Susan and Becky to make those things happen. The outings, not necessarily the painting, but. So next I'm going to have Jen come up, and Jen had a program for kind of herbal and natural wellness kinds of things that were available, and so I'll let Jen.
So we just did, with a small child, involved one workshop. We'll see if this works. And with that workshop, we learned some basics of some just herbal safety, how to work with different plants, how to think about a plant as more than just food, and use it kind of as medicine. And then we made some fire cider, which was lots of fun. I don't know, Terry, have you tried your fire cider yet? It should be ready. Oh, well, perfect. You can use it anytime now. And everything. We had a few other meetings scheduled, but just through summer, people's lives got busy and that kind of thing. We hope to maybe meet again here late November, early December to make our salve, just in time for a kind of DIY Christmas presents and that kind of thing. So it was a lot of fun. It was just neat to get to know people in church in a different way. So.
And I just want to say thanks to Jen because of her interest in, not to put words in her mouth, but her interest in, the natural things that we have here, the availability for them to be useful to us and to kind of stay away from the need to, chemicals and pharmaceuticals and so on and so forth, and the things that are available, that God's made available to us in his natural world that we don't avail ourselves often very much. I think that's her heart in some ways behind some of that, so thank you. So the next person I'm gonna have come up is Jeanette, and Russ can come too. But we did the memorial garden out here, and for those of you who haven't made it by, please come by and see it. But it's really kind of a remarkable transformation, and a lot of work went into that. And Jeanette may thank some others, but I know that even though Jeanette was kind of the face of it in some ways, and in the plan, and Russ in terms of the execution, I know there were others that they might want to mention who were kind of in the background talking to the HOA and things like that were really important in order to be able to do this kind of stuff. So Jeanette and or Russ, come on up and talk about this.
So when Father Christ asked me to create a memorial garden, I began forming an idea. but that was about all I could do. I couldn't do any of the physical work. I mean, there was so much physical work, and I wasn't sure how it was going to become a reality, so I enlisted my husband here, who does gardening. I do designing, and he does gardening, so that worked out well for both of us. It was important for me that the primary objective for making a garden was to provide an activity for those in our congregation to come together. I didn't want it to be a Fernandez garden. I wanted it to be a Holy Trinity garden. And I was just blown away by how many people came out. Many of you prayed, which was necessary. We did come up against some obstacles. I was having trouble finding rocks. I was having trouble finding someone to engrave them. The HOA initially wasn't very favorable about having a garden out here, especially with the word memorial attached to it. And it couldn't look churchy. It's a business community, I understand that. But through your prayers, everything fell into place perfectly. I just am so grateful to all of you who came out and moved rocks from one place to another, did it again and again. The pavers, I know Bill and Don spent many hours putting them in, taking them out, putting them in, taking them out. It was so much work, it was so much labor, and I know Russ and I would never have been able to do any of it without everyone coming together and just making it happen. I mean, I had an idea, and it came to fruition from all of you. So I wanted to share one of the highlights that was exciting for me. When I finally figured out where I was going to get the stones, it was going to take about 2 or 3 months. It wasn't going to be ready until the middle to the end of November, the rocks, and that was really what made it the Memorial Garden. So I got a call Thursday, and she said we were able to finish them early, which I was so excited about because I wanted the whole garden to be done for this event. And I can say now, okay, let me just give you a heads up. It's going to look so much better in the spring. We've got rocks and little tiny plants. But in the spring, everything will come up, and it'll be so beautiful. So thank you so much for everyone this was a community effort for sure. You want to say something?
Sure. First of all, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Jeanette. Anyway, there's no other word other than thank you to those that pitched in, and most importantly, the prayers, okay, that we don't hear, but we know people were praying. And what you see is the results out there is because of what God has designed. So when you come to church or pass by, just turn your head and look. Hey, look, you'll see a garden, and it'll just continue to grow as you will grow spiritually. Okay? Good job, guys.
Thank you, Russ and Jeanette. I think, it's kind of above and beyond, like was mentioned, Bill and Don. And then I think back in the background with the HOA and stuff, I think Judy and maybe Lynn, I don't know if you were in on that too, or kind of interacting with the HOA to kind of pull the strings in the background to make all that physical work even acceptable and could be implemented. So thank you. Okay, Debbie Swanson. We're very blessed, as most of you probably know, that Debbie's a spiritual director and also teaches at the seminary on spiritual formation. And so she led a few retreats and made that available to a number of people on a number of different schedules. So Debbie, if you wouldn't mind coming up.
I just start out with a quote. Trevor Hudson has said, insights about God are good, but the real prize is encounter. Insights point to God, but encounters when we actually meet him and experience him. And that was my heart for the retreatants. I wanted people to have some space, some time, some silence, some stillness to just encounter God. And we had one retreat here at the church, and there were 4 attendees in different sections. They all had their private space and prayer candle. And then I had 2 people come to my retreat space, and then somebody else took theirs. I just want to read a couple comments from the retreatants themselves, and I wanted to do this anonymously. So it may not make full sense because I'm editing. I spent my retreat contemplating the icon in the vesting room, known as the Hospitality of Abraham. I was seeking direction from the Lord about next steps. The Lord assured me that now in retirement, I am a knee for the congregation. That is, someone who ministers through prayer. He also reminded me that I am gifted as a teacher, and as the congregation gets to know me, that gift would come to the forefront. Another person wrote, "The silence was deafening. The message was received and later confirmed. Learn more, lead less." A fantastic message from the Lord. Another person wrote, "Our Lord met me with a love which I could feel, which was incredible. I received his words in my heart. It gave me a new perspective of what is happening, which keeps me looking forward. I am grateful." There are questions I want to ask, and I hope there will be another retreat opportunity soon. Another person, "This was not my first retreat, but with every retreat I have done, I have been blessed with one grace or another. On this retreat, I gained great insight into the gift of detachment from all the cares I have allowed to consume my life, at least for a bit. In that state of detachment, I was better than able to see and experience the gifts that God has for me. In particular, I came to a deeper knowledge of his presence and my life in him." And then 2 more. "I came to the retreat feeling adrift and wanting to know what and how of the next chapter of life. It was suggested to me to seek the who, and that all the rest would align step by step. The Lord pressed onto my heart that I am worthy and he is enough. All I have to say is yes to the next step. We are all incarnating God for each other. Thank you for the gift of space." Then finally, "My silent retreat experience was both insightful and surprising. Even though every marching band seemed, which we held the retreat, and it was Broomfield days, so the marching bands are all going by here, had to pass in front of me, the Lord had other plans. My time alone helped me to understand some challenges and painful memories that have been stored away for quite a while. With my director's help, I unearthed and reflected on critical pieces of scripture, became aware of additional resources, and began to understand the true meaning of letting go. I would definitely participate in another silent retreat." And then for me, just watching God be at work in people's lives was gift, much gift. And I also took Chris's challenge, I guess, to try something I've never done before. So I decided to take the coach's course for CrossFit teaching, and it was a 2-day course, and I had to pass the test. First attempt, I failed. So I had 2 choices, give up or try again. So I tried again, and I passed. And what I will be doing is coaching beyond middle-aged adults and first-timers to CrossFit, because I feel very strongly that movement for older people and weightlifting is very important. I don't know where this is going. I just knew that it was something that I had thought about doing, and I thought, well, Chris encouraged us to try something new, and I tried it, and here we are. I'll let you know how it goes.
Thank you, Debbie. And last but not least, Sarah, do you want the mic over there? I'm not sure we can see you, but maybe, do you want to sit? I'll have to sit. Okay. Do you want to change chairs? Well, you know what? Why don't you just... Well, I can do that. I'm just wondering if she'll be seen, which I think you will, hopefully.
Well, As a new kid on the block, I felt I wanted very much to do something, but I wasn't sure that people knew me well enough to participate. And I was delighted that that wasn't the case. I have a pretty faithful group that are participating in prayer journaling. I wanted to do this because I have spent a couple of decades ministering alongside my late husband, who was an Eastern Orthodox priest, and I really, really missed the opportunity for active ministry, and this seemed to be an opening, and it also gave me an opportunity to get to know the congregation. And thanks be to God, my doctor finally solved some medical problems for me, so I'm able to be here on Sunday mornings, which I was part of your congregation for more than a year online before I actually was able to come. It's been a wonderful experience. It didn't go exactly the way I thought it would. I thought that I would teach a few classes and then everybody would go on their own. I realized what a wonderfully diverse congregation this is, though. I went in with the expectation of a group of all Episcopalians, and I discovered that you're out of a lot of different backgrounds. And I had to adjust accordingly, which was a good thing. It was good for me, and I think it was good for my participants. I have continued this by sending out a weekly prayer journaling prompt, and that seems to be pretty well received. And actually, anyone who would like to receive those prompts, I'd be happy to expand my email list. So just let me know and give me your email address, and I'll add you on. I can't think of anything else to say, except thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to become a part of a wonderful, thriving congregation. I grew up in an Anglican, and for me, Holy Trinity has been coming home.
Thank you, Sarah. And that was one of the things I did, was participate in that, and I will encourage all of you to contact her and get those prayer prompts every week, because I'm one of those people who thinks prayer is really important, and I don't do a lot of it. So I appreciate the encouragement and the prompting. And I'm reminded of just the reality when we talk about congregational renewal in this congregation. I'm aware of just the various gifts that people have. And Sarah, your gift of who you are and what you bring has been a great enrichment to us, as is everyone's gift. I think we forget sometimes that this community is served by the clergy, but it is made up of us. And as we offer who we are and what our gifts are to one another, we all become more who we maybe were made to be, and together we become maybe more the church that God envisions for us. So thank you all for participating as you did. And then I'm just going to kind of live a little bit of an open mic for anybody who wants a chance to speak about their experience in any of the sabbatical, the congregational renewal things, or perhaps someone was given something to read that someone else did who couldn't be here. So Nathan, I think that's true for you. And then after Nathan, if anybody else wants to come up, please do so. And then after that, Chris will come up. Okay?
Hello, everyone. Judy Southwell couldn't be here today, and she participated in a lot of these different groups, and they meant a lot to her. So she wanted to just share one particular experience through the activities group, and I will do my best to read through it faithfully. August 11th, 2024. The first day I smiled in many months. It all began innocently as an excursion to our game a professional baseball team played. We had been encouraged to get together with fellow parishioners from our church to attend events, plant a garden, and spend time with one another by our head rector while he was on sabbatical leave. He had challenged us to learn something new, experience or try something we had not done before, spend time with one another, and accomplish something we had not been able to do. For me, the baseball game was something I wanted to attend more than anything else. My husband of 56 years had passed away 7 months before, and my grief journey has been painfully difficult. This seemed like something that I needed. He had taught me so much about baseball, loved the sport immensely. We had seen many games there over the years. From the moment I got inside and my wheelchair was parked in my designated place, my spirits began to lift in a way they had not for well over a year. I felt more excitement and happiness than I had for any way there were but a few, happiness than I had for any way that long. It had been closer to his leaving, there would have been tears. I could not stop. And as it was, there were a few, but they mingled with happy memories of our time together. There was joy instead of painful remembering. Happy thoughts of having learned about hand signals and when to steal bases. What coach was telling each player what to do. He taught me so much, and I loved every minute of it. There that day, I felt comforted remembering David, that I had these happy memories. It was the first time I could smile while remembering so much. I laughed, enjoyed the game, talked to my friends that I had not in many months. A few who did not know me for long before he passed away, they were no doubt incredibly surprised at someone whom they had only known as a grief-stricken widow, often in tears. It was a gift from God that day and a new beginning of healing for me, as I had given up on experiencing enjoyment ever again. It's from Judy.
Anybody else have anything you want to share? Before I take over? That is a miracle that the Rockies can make you do that. We'll just credit the great game of baseball for that, Judy. I got 3 minutes, all right. Thank you all for sharing, and I'm anxious to hear more from each of you in depth as I get to spend time with you. I'm so glad that you did that. I mean, that was, you never know how these things are going to go. I genuinely didn't let myself worry too much about it, but I was unsure what kind of experience you all would have here at Holy Trinity in my absence. I wasn't sure, and the more I hear about not only these gatherings but all kinds of things, I'm thrilled at the life that continued and grew and deepened, widened, all of that while I was away. I'm super thankful for the new connections that have been made in all those ways. So thank you for sharing. I look forward to hearing more. What my plan is this afternoon in sharing is just going to be speaking. I know a large part of this was visual and imagery, and I'm going to put all of that together, and we'll make that available. Brian and I are working. I don't know when that'll happen, but when it does, I'll let you know, and we'll get we'll putting all that together, and we'll get the images to you where you can take a look at some of what a very, very, very amateur photographer did. I wouldn't even say photographer. I just pointed the thing and clicked at things that seemed nice to my eyes. So what I want to do, though, to start is I'm gonna read, of course, and 3 different quotes. These stack of books back here, I'm actually going to share with you, not briefly. I won't read or summarize or anything like that. But I want, it's a big part of my life, and just want to share with you what I read and what influenced me and all of that. So what I left with in my luggage in the bike was, I have a Bible prayer book combo thing. Left with that and book of essays by Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of my faves. He's the best. If you've never read him, he's just an unbelievable American and human, and his ability to communicate is wonderful. And he walked away from the ministry because he felt like he couldn't be saved unless he did. But I want to read something from my favorite essay by him called Self-Reliance, and I'm going to read 3 sections from this on self-reliance. I ended up reading a lot more. I got a lot more. Susie mailed them, brought them when she met me. And I ordered books on the road. But this is what I took with me and what I began the first probably 6 weeks with Emerson until I ended up in his hometown and visited his house and all of that, which I'll share a little bit about. But 3 sections in this essay called Self-Reliance that for me capture this time for me personally. They're somewhat lengthy, so bear with me. It is for want of self-culture, it is for lack or want of self-culture that the superstition of traveling, whose idols are Italy, England, Egypt, retains its fascination for all educated Americans. They who made England, Italy, or Greece venerable in the imagination did so by sticking fast where they were, like an axis of the earth. In manly hours, we feel that duty is our place. The soul is no traveler. The wise man stays at home. And when his necessities, his duties, on any occasion call him from his house or into foreign lands, he is at home still, and shall make men sensible by the expression of his countenance, that he goes the missionary of wisdom and virtue, and visits cities and men like a sovereign, and not like an interloper or a valet. I have no churlish objection to the circumnavigation of the globe for the purposes of art, of study, and benevolence, so that the man is first domesticated or does not go abroad with the hope of finding somewhat greater than he knows. He who travels to be amused or to get somewhat which he does not carry travels away from himself and grows old even in youth among old things. In Thebes, in Palmyra, his will and mind have become old and dilapidated as they. He carries ruins to ruins. Traveling is a fool's paradise. Our first journeys discover to us the indifference of places. At home, I dream that at Naples, at Rome, I can be intoxicated with beauty and lose my sadness. I pack my trunk, embrace my friends, embark on the sea, and at last wake up in Naples, and there beside me is the stern fact, the sad self, unrelenting, identical, that I fled from. I seek the Vatican and the palaces. I affect to be intoxicated with sights and suggestions, but I am not intoxicated. My giant goes with me wherever I go. That's the first. Here's the second. In what prayers do men allow themselves? That which they call a holy office is not so much as brave and manly. Prayer looks abroad and asks for some foreign addition to come through some foreign virtue, and loses itself in endless mazes of natural and supernatural, and mediatorial and miraculous. Prayer that craves a particular commodity, anything less than all good, is vicious. Prayer is the contemplation of the facts of life from the highest point of view. It is the soliloquy of a beholding and jubilant soul. It is the Spirit of God pronouncing his works good. But prayer as a means to effect a private end is meanness and theft. It supposes dualism and not unity in nature and consciousness. As soon as the man is at one with God, he will not beg. He will then see prayer in all action. And then the third. Live no longer to the expectation of these deceived and deceiving people with whom we converse. Say to them, O father, O mother, O wife, O brother, O friend, I have lived with you after appearances hitherto. Henceforward I am the truth's. Be it known unto you that henceforward I obey no law less than the eternal law. I will have no covenants but proximities. I shall endeavor to nourish my parents, to support my family, to be the chaste husband of one wife, but these relations I must fill after a new and unprecedented way. I appeal from your customs. I must be myself. I cannot break myself any longer for you or you. If you can love me for what I am, we shall be the happier. If you cannot, I will still seek to deserve that you should. I will not hide my tastes or my aversions. I will so trust that what is deep is holy, that I will do strongly before the sun and moon whatever inly rejoices me and the heart appoints. If you are noble, I will love you. If you are not, I will not hurt you and myself by hypocritical attentions. If you are true, but not in the same truth with me, cleave to your companions. I will seek my own. I do this not selfishly, but humbly and truly. It is alike your interest and mine and all men's, however long we have dwelt in lies, to live in truth. Does this sound harsh today? You will soon love what is dictated by your nature as well as mine, and if we follow the truth, it will bring us out safe at last. But so you may give these friends pain, yes, but I cannot sell my liberty and my power to save their sensibility. Besides, all persons have their moments of reason when they look out into the region of absolute truth. Then will they justify me and do the same thing. Emerson, the best. So I spent my time with Emerson as I read and I rode. I visited, where is my list here? 27 states in 2 countries, 3 different provinces, and rode 8,658 miles. I'm just going to read down the list of the places that I stopped, because you'll know these places. Among us, we'll all know all of these places. First stop, North Platte, Nebraska. Then Chamberlain, South Dakota. Pierre, South Dakota. Bismarck, North Dakota. This was all in the first week. I left on a Monday, and I hit Bismarck on Friday, and I wanted out. On Thursday, I had been talking to Susie like, this is ridiculous. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so far over my head. What was I thinking? This is horrible. Get a trailer. Come out here. I'm selling the bike. I'm done. I'm through. I don't want to do this anymore. And that was about 24 hours. And I had a good talk with myself in the mirror and pushed on. But it was terror. That's what it was. It was confronting things. I've been riding since 2021. I've been riding a motorcycle. I'm not some big experienced rider. And I just met conditions that I hadn't anticipated. Weather, roads, and it was hard, and I was afraid. I was afraid. And I confronted that and pushed through. But Susie met me in Bismarck. We rode up to Rugby. Anybody know Rugby, North Dakota? What Rugby's famous for? It's the geographical center of North America. And there's nothing there except a big sign and like a couple of little hotels. But we happened to ride up there, unbeknownst to us, on a day called the Smack Dab Ride, which is a ride for motorcyclers from Lebanon, Kansas, up to Rugby, North Dakota. and it's one road, and it's 600 and something miles, and they get 16 hours to do it in, because it's the smack dab, Lebanon, Kansas is the geographical middle of the U.S., and Rugby is the geographical middle of North America, and so they call it smack dab in the middle ride, and they make this ride. Well, there were all these motorcycles when we got there. What in the world's going on? And but that's what it was. So we stayed in Rugby, and then we went up to the International Peace Gardens the next day, if anybody's been there. Beautiful, right on the Canadian border. And then we cut over to Winnipeg and enjoyed that city. What a wonderful city. Everything about Canada lived up. All the characters of kind people and generosity, and it was so good. I love Canada. It's a wonderful place. I could definitely see a life in Canada. It was beautiful. Winnipeg was awesome. The wind in Manitoba was ruthless. 40 mile an hour, 45 mile an hour crosswinds. Really difficult coming out of Winnipeg, but open road, and it was wonderful. My next stop was War Road, Minnesota. Anybody ever heard of War Road, Minnesota? Stopped in War Road, then on to Duluth, right on Lake Superior. Had a beautiful place and got to walk along the lake there in Duluth, learn about the city. I grew up in Duluth, Georgia. Duluth, Minnesota was our sister city, so to see and to experience Duluth was wonderful. Then to Baraga, Michigan, because I wanted to visit a shrine there, the Baraga Shrine, who was a missionary to indigenous folks in that area. And it's this big, I've got a picture of a priest with his snowshoes and his crucifix and prayer book under his arm, and this 30-foot statue of this guy who just hiked through the woods for his life, caring for the people who lived in this remote area in Baraga, Michigan, in the UP. Then down to Mackinac. Oh, Mackinac. It was raining, and I didn't get to do all I wanted to do, but what a beautiful place. The bridge terrified me. It was raining and windy, and there's trucks, and it was, but, I mean, amazing. What an amazing place Mackinac is. Then to Bay City, Michigan. And then to Point Edward, Ontario, right over the border, which was, that was a special place. I don't know, Edison is there. Edison grew up on the other side, on the U.S. side, when he was 12 and sold papers there at the train depot. Thomas Edison learned about that. Point Edward was beautiful. Then on to Toronto, spent a few days in Toronto. Then to Kingston, one of my favorites. Kingston, Ontario was a beautiful, got to spend a few days there. Amazing little town. Then to Montreal. My sister she met me there, and we walked the entire city. I mean, she is a doer, a goer, and I left there with blisters all over my feet because we walked that city for 4 days everywhere. It was amazing. Montreal, the cathedrals. I'm visiting cathedrals along these paths, and Notre Dame in Montreal. There's nothing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. You can go online and just take a gander, but it's hard to. You can't really speak. It's an amazing cathedral. Then to Quebec City. Marty met me in Quebec City. So on to Quebec City, and we actually stayed just outside of the city on the eastern, just on the St. Lawrence on the river. It was beautiful. What an amazing place, amazing city, amazing history, old Quebec. People were friendly. I was super worried because everything turned French, really fast, and I was worried, but people were kind and could see that I wasn't that, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful place, and the dollar goes pretty far in Canada, so that was nice too. From Quebec, straight shot down to Boston. Met a friend, an old grade school buddy. Met me in Boston. We did all the stuff in Boston, all the places, all the colonial places in Boston. But in Boston, the greatest cathedral of all the cathedrals, Fenway. We went to Fenway, and we bought tickets to go early and get up on the Green Monster and be there during batting practice. This is a guy that I played baseball with since we were 10 years old. Played college ball together, travel. I mean, this is my baseball guy. And so to be in Fenway, both of us for the first time, That was an amazing time. So I'm with you, Judy. Baseball is God's game for sure. That was Boston. Then up to Concord. I wanted to do Lexington and Concord. That was part of the colonial stuff. This is where Revolutionary War starts. So wanted to go up to Lexington and Concord. And it had escaped me, the proximity of Walden Lake and Emerson's relationship to Concord. So I extended my stay there after I did the North Bridge stuff and all of that. Paul Revere's, ride and where he got arrested, all of that. I stayed and did kind of an Emerson. I walked around Walden Lake, Thoreau, where Thoreau lived in the woods and built his little cabin and wrote that great work. And that was an amazing time. From there, I went to Sleepy Hollow, Tarrytown. In 6th grade, we did the play, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, so I wanted to go and see the Bridge of the Headless Horseman, so I went there, a neat little town. Then to Gettysburg, just sadness in Gettysburg. Jamestown and Williamsburg were pretty amazing. From there, I made my way down via a little stop in North Carolina, a place called Lumberton. Just spent the night there, and then on to Savannah. And I spent a week, about 6 days in Savannah, Georgia. So much history in Savannah that I was unaware of, and got to go to the oldest existing synagogue. I think it was the first, and it's now the oldest synagogue in the U.S. is there in Savannah, and they have the Torah scroll that was brought over on the boat, and they have it under glass, and it was an amazing tour. And it's the only synagogue in the States that's built in the neo-Gothic style, so it looks like our churches exactly. When you go in, the furniture's the same, everything's the same. Instead of a cross, of course, you have a menorah back there, and the Torah, or a tabernacle of some kind that holds it. And then also the oldest African Baptist church in North America is in Savannah. And I did a tour there, just unbelievable, the story of survival of those people over the years and what they endured. Savannah was an amazing place. So from Savannah down to Port Orange, Florida, and then Susie met me again in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, so south of Jacksonville, St. Augustine, for those just south of that, New Smyrna Beach. It is the shark bite capital of the world. But there's only like 4 a year that happen, so it's not like it's some crazy thing. But the waves are really good, so there's a lot of surfers at New Smyrna. But it was beautiful. We had a wonderful time. We got to spend 9 days there together, right on the beach, and we went up to St. Augustine for a day and just enjoyed doing a whole lot of nothing, being on the beach by the pool. It was wonderful. Weather cooperated. It was great. Then to Orlando for a night, then down to Pompano Beach, just north of Miami, spent a few days there on the beach, and then over to Hudson, which is north of Tampa. So I cut across the state of Florida and went over to the Gulf side and stayed in a little place called Hudson, and I stayed there for a week, and right on the water had a lagoon, and dolphins would come in the lagoon in the morning and swim as I'm sitting out there drinking coffee and reading and looking out at the ocean and the sunsets. It was Hudson is an amazing little fishing, boating town there north of Tampa. That was wonderful. Then on to Santa Rosa Beach, Blue Mountain Beach, which is near like Destin, Florida. So the white sands of Florida, beautiful. This is where I met my buddies that I meet every summer from grade school. So the guy that met me in Boston, he's one of them, and there's 5 of us, and we've gotten together every summer since 2019. And we were all in the same, except for one of us, we were all in the same 6th grade homeroom class, and we've just stayed buddies. And we're starting to get together now every year. So that's where we met, and spent a week there on the beach with those goofballs. And then to New Orleans. Never been to New Orleans before, and one of my friends brought his motorcycle, and we rode to New Orleans. What is a 4-hour ride was a 9-hour ride. Miserable, the worst stretch of the entire trip, not even close. It was awful, but we made it, and New Orleans was as New Orleans. Yeah, you either like that or you don't, I suppose. Then to Pensacola, where my sister lives. My sister, her family, my folks were there, and I got to spend, I was there probably 5 or 6 days with them, had a wonderful time. And then I started to make my way back home. Stayed in Olive Branch, Mississippi, Springfield, Missouri, and then Susie flew out. This was my kind of last week before I was coming back. She flew and met me in Kansas City. Kansas City is where I was born. So we went to the hospital I was born at. We visited a few places, went down to 18th and Vine in Kansas City, and went to the Negro League Baseball Hall of Fame that's there on 18th and Vine. That's the Jazz district in Kansas City. Yeah, so just visited the city there and had a great time, and then made my way back via Colby, Kansas, and then back home. And really where the trip ended, came home and then grabbed Susie, and then we went down to Pagosa. And so the sabbatical ended officially after like a week, a little over a week down in Pagosa, where Susie and I got a little place, and she had to work. But we just enjoyed our time. We had a kitchen, so went to the grocery store and went to the hot springs, of course, and just had a wonderful time walking around and being a part of that. And then I got back home and was here for a week, and I said, Susie, I can't take it. We got to go somewhere. Got to do something. Something. So I said, hey, you know what? The Harvest Festival's happening up in Custer this weekend. And so she got off work on that Friday afterwards, and we went up. As soon as she got off work, we were on the bike. We stayed the night in Torrington, and then we went up to Custer and went to the Harvest Moon Festival that night, and then rode through the Black Hills Custer State Park the next day, and then came home on Monday. So that was the trip, staying. There was about 40 places, I think. Different places that I stayed. So some places were just a night, some obviously were much longer. But that was the trip. And I took pictures. It wasn't every day. I had anticipated like kind of this picture every day thing, and it just didn't work out that way. The way weather, or sometimes I'm just in a place where, I just want to take pictures just to take pictures. So I have just loads of pictures, and as I said, I'm going through all those, and we'll weed those down and get something presentable. But that, I don't know. The picture part was that was something new. I don't know that I fell in love with it. Wasn't something. I don't know that it'll be something I don't have some burning desire to continue necessarily. But I'm thankful that I have those. I'm going to get some of them framed and hang them in my house and as reminders. So it was good. It was a good discipline to have. But yeah, we'll see what kind of life it carries from here on out. So that's kind of what I did as like physically, just very quickly, like intellectually, like what attracted me. I read Emerson, and that little phrase, prayer being a soliloquy. I was like, ooh. So the guy, when I went and so I did my master's degree. My master's thesis was on a man named Friedrich Schleiermacher, a Prussian minister in the 1800s. He was a Reformed minister, but he created the first united church between the Reformed and the Lutherans. One congregation would meet on Saturday, the other on Sunday, and the pastors would swap back and forth. And he's a influential person, but he wrote a book called The Soliloquies, and it's German romantic religious sensibilities, and I love that kind of stuff. And so I read Schleiermacher again, who then, I won't go too deep, but it led me, they're all kind of riffing on, if you remember the old guy, Plato. They're all kind of riffing on themes in Plato in one way or another, among other things. But it led me to consider all kinds of things about God and whatnot. And so a book I'd wanting to read is a reflection. You know that passage where Jesus, they get mad that he's, you're making yourself the Son of God. And he says, doesn't your scripture say that you are God's? You know that passage? And well, this is a book, a reflection on that, you are God's, and about deification, about what it means, like what Peter says, for us to partake of the divine nature. What is the human's capacity to embody divinity. That's what that's about, which led me to a certain kind of contemplation. This is all kind of in what Christians would call mystical theology, perhaps. But there's a Benedictine monk named Bede Griffiths, and he lived in an ashram in India among Hindus for 40 years. Eric's actually been there. We've had this discussion. He's actually been to visit. And he wrote a book called Vedanta and Christian Faith. And so I read the beautiful Bede Griffiths' works and picked up a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of the Vedic tradition, the Indian tradition, extremely old and rich. This translation is by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder of, he's basically the Apostle Paul in the United States for Krishna consciousness. The Bhaktivedanta Hinduism, they have a belief in a personal God. And so this is his translation of the Gita. So anyway, I started reading the Gita. I'd read some of this in college and picked that back up again. Comparative religion, reading other religions' texts. Forget apologetics, like who's right, like we're in some sport and this is a competition or something. But as a human reflection of the divine is, I mean, one of the greatest gifts to clarify your own faith. It just helps. It helps you to be a better Christian. There's nothing that draws me away to make, not because I don't think it's true, but precisely because it is. And that's what it adorns and beautifies our faith. So from there, of course, back to my go-to text, the Philokalia, 5 volumes of desert spirituality, and I'm mainly reading Maximus the Confessor, the great synthesizer in the East of about 6 centuries of Christian spirituality and theology. So I'm reading him, and then a book on Maximus called The Whole Mystery of Christ, Creation as Incarnation. Think of that title, Creation as Incarnation. And it's on Maximus's thought. And then this work by Rowan Williams, my favorite Anglican, living Anglican, Christ, the Heart of Creation, which is one of his newest works. I read through this. So my mind caught fire. It's Emerson's fault. It's always Emerson's fault. But that's where I went in my thinking, and when I say my thinking, I don't just mean like these are curiosities. Like Chris is just curious. He just likes to. These are, for me, this is the stuff. This is food. This is the stuff like when Jesus says, "I have food to eat you know not of." This is the stuff you live on, for me, and it's contemplation and it's communion and it's encounter. It was wonderful to have the space to be able to do that. Not unto anything. I don't need to teach it. I don't got to communicate it. I'm just getting to do it. So that's what I did. That's what I did. I did a whole lot of things, but that's what I did in broad outline. Here's what I didn't do on the trip. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't go to church. 3 times I went to church. I went to church in Quebec, to a French Catholic Mass with Marty. And the only thing I understood was I understood everything because the liturgy is so similar. I knew what they were doing. But the homily, the priest summarized it in English. He gave a short little summary in English for those who were in the congregation. I went to church there. That was an afternoon Mass. And then I went again in Colonial Williamsburg. All of these were, like the first 2 times I was in church, it was unexpected. Marty and I were going to that cathedral to look. They happened to be having Mass, so we stayed for Mass. The second time I was in Colonial Williamsburg, just walking down the street, and Brutton Parish, which is one of the oldest in the U.S., it's like 1674, I think this parish was founded. And I'm walking by, and I see, it's Episcopal Church. I walk by, and I see, and it says, afternoon Eucharist, noon. And I look down, it's noon. So I go inside, and I open the little gate, and I go in my pew, and I sit down in this old colonial Episcopal church, for an afternoon Eucharist, and then there was probably 20 of us that had just been walking around Colonial Williamsburg, and they go in, and so we shared communion together, and that was a wonderful service. And then when I was in Savannah, I went to, it's the oldest Episcopal church in Georgia that's right downtown in Savannah, and I went to that service on a Sunday morning. I wish I had gone to the African Baptist church afterwards, but nonetheless, that was it. So I didn't go to church. This was not pre-planned. I just didn't end up going. What else didn't I do? I didn't read scripture on this trip. Again, not intentionally. I took my Bible. I was planning to read through the Old Testament again. That was kind of and I sat down day one. And actually, because I read through the Torah pretty regularly, the first 5, and so I was like, you know what, in Joshua, I'm really feel like I'm familiar with that text, but I hadn't read Judges in a while, so I was going to start with Judges. So sat down day one, I read just chapter a day. I'm not going to try to be crazy here, a couple chapters, whatever it was. And so I sit down, I read it. That was it. That was it. I made it to like Judges 3 or Judges 4. That was it. I didn't read my Bible. It doesn't mean that the Bible wasn't with me. Please don't understand that at all, or that I wasn't living the Bible. I could never imagine doing anything else. I didn't read it. Didn't do the daily office. Didn't have some normal set time of prayer where I just got up and did, some time of devotion. Didn't do that. I didn't tell anyone, not one person, who I was or what I did for work. Intentionally hid it. Like Jesus. Not that I'm like Jesus, but I took that cue and I hid it. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want that. That's what I'm leaving. I was leaving it behind. I was just going, and I'm Chris. Of course I'm that. I'm not leaving it ultimately, I'm here. But when I was gone, and I had opportunities, but I didn't. I didn't lie. I never lied, but I didn't share that with anyone. And the last thing I didn't do was try to make the sabbatical be anything. I didn't. And I'm so thankful for wherever that gift came from, that I didn't feel compelled to have to make it be something or answerable to someone or to something, to myself, God, you, Lily, or whoever. I just let it be what it was going to be, which to me was trying to do the words of Jesus, the day has enough in it. You don't got to borrow from the future. Just today's got enough in it. And I tried to do that. So what I did, what I didn't do. What happened to me as a result of all of this. Not aiming at something, you still hit things. It happened. So what happened to me, at least from my vantage point, which isn't the only one and maybe not even the truest one, but it's my vantage of what happened to me, was somebody mentioned in one of these sharings, I don't remember which one it was, about detachment. Somebody had mentioned the word detachment, and that's the word for me. That's what happened. I became detached in that sense, not just detached in the indifferent sense, detached in the sense that I am not, I don't feel like I need this to live in Colorado. I don't need anymore. I don't need the things in the same way I needed things. I don't need approval in ways that I feel like I needed approval. I don't need assurances in the way that I felt that I needed assurances. I quoted Johannes or Meister Eckhart this morning in the sermon. And in the little introduction, the author who's introducing his work, Eckhart talks a lot about this idea of detachment, not being what we might use in our language today, emotionally attached. That we are attached to images, things, people, places, and there are emotions that are bound up with them, memories, whatever. There are emotions that are bound up that come before our ability to choose them. They're just present with the thing. I remember something, immediately I feel something. We use the word now called trigger. This phenomena is not like something we discovered. All doctors and scientists of consciousness know about this phenomena of our ability to, what people in the Philokalia, our tradition, they call them impassioned thoughts, thoughts full of passion that we have not chosen. They've been given to us by parents and surroundings and all kinds of things. And it's part of spiritual progress to find distance, what we now call in our therapeutic language, individuation. You have to become separate. The child must separate and push against the parent if they're ever going to actually reciprocate to the parent fully. There has to be an owning of one's own agency and not just living by compulsion and habit and instinct, but to be human, which means to be free, to choose. And so he defines detachment as simultaneously freedom from attachment to things through appetites and a cognitive freedom, a liberation from the images of physical things which serve to restrict the mind and alienate it from its own possibilities. Memories that turn us inward and make us fearful, and our love shrinks, our compassion dissolves because we're overtaken by something. Detachment is the growing ability to not have those things touch us in all the ways. And for me, it was vocationally, primarily vocationally. And my desire and need to like all of us, when secure an identity in what? In being a priest, and that you like me. And how much work, becoming aware of how much work I have done to try to be liked by all of you and by everyone, whoever. And the unfairness to you, the robbery to you, from me trying to manage both sides of the relationship, right? And so rather than taking ownership of, like what I just read at the beginning, I will not hide my aversions or my tastes, because that's what's true and that's what I desire of you, that we meet each other not thinking that this is what they'll want me to be. How much energy in my life had gone. That is what I experienced simply by being detached from it and experiencing myself apart from that reality. I came to understand how much I have been invested. It can be in body language, what you do with people to try to communicate something, or the way you let certain things go because you don't really want to touch on that thing. But you're doing violence to yourself for the sake of the other. I will no longer, what does he say? What does Emerson say? I will no longer break myself for you or you. I can't. It's not good for you and it's not good for me. And the hesitation and the resistance and the fear of living that way is that I won't be liked. People might go away. Detachment. If you'd let me, I know I'm taking a lot of time, but just two quick passages here from Eckhart that get at this for me, to express what it feels like is happening. I wouldn't say happened to me, but is happening to me, and what I want to cooperate, what I accept as happening to me. People say, "Oh Lord, I wish that I stood as well with God and that I had as much devotion and peace with God as other people, and that I could be like them or could be as poor as they are." He's talking to monks, Or they say, "It never works for me unless I am in this or that particular place and do this or that particular thing. I must go to somewhere remote or live in a hermitage or a monastery." Truly, it is you who are the cause of this yourself and nothing else. It is your own self-will, even if you don't know it, or if this doesn't seem to you to be the case. The lack of peace that you feel can only come from your own self-will, whether you're aware of this or not. Whatever we think, that we should avoid certain things and seek out others, whether these be places or people, particular forms of devotion, this group of people or this kind of activity, these are not to blame for the fact that you are held back by devotional practices and by things. Rather, it is you, as you exist in these things, who hold yourself back. For you do not stand in the proper relation to them. Start with yourself, therefore, and take leave of yourself. Truly, if you do not depart from yourself, then wherever you take refuge, you will find obstacles and unrest, wherever it may be. Those who seek peace in external things, whether in places or devotional practices, people or works, in withdrawal from the world or poverty or self-abasement, however great these things may be, or whatever their character, there's still nothing at all and cannot be the source of peace. Those who seek in this way seek wrongly, and the further they range, the less they find what they're looking for. They proceed like someone who's lost their way. The further they go, the more lost they become. But what then should they do? First of all, they should renounce themselves, and then they will have renounced all things. Truly, if someone were to renounce a kingdom or the whole world while still holding on to themselves, then they would have renounced nothing at all. And indeed, if someone renounces themselves, then whatever they might keep, whether it be a kingdom or honor or whatever it might be, they will still have renounced all things. And then the second, it was once asked, some people like to withdraw from company and prefer always to be alone. That is where they find peace, when they enter a church. Is this the best thing? My answer was no, and this is the reason why. That person who is in the right state of mind is so regardless of where they are and who they're with, while those who are in the wrong state of mind will find this to be the case wherever they are and whoever they are with. In the language of Emerson, my giant goes with me. Those who are rightly disposed truly have God with them, and whoever truly possesses God in the right way possesses him in all places, on the street, in any company, as well as in a church, or remote place, or in their cell. No one can obstruct such a person if only they possess God in the right way and possess him alone. Why is this so? This is the case because they possess God alone, intend God alone, and all things become God for them. We should grasp God in all things and should train ourselves to keep God always present in our mind, in our striving, and in our love. Take note of how you are inwardly turned to God when in church or your cell. Take note of it and maintain this same attitude of mind, preserving it when you go among the crowd, into restlessness and diversity. But whoever does not truly have God within themselves, but must constantly receive him in one external thing after another, seeking God in diverse ways, whether by particular works, people, or places, such a person does not possess God. The least thing can impede them, for they do not have God and do not seek, love, and intend him alone. It is not only bad company, but also good company that can obstruct them. Not only the street, but also the church. Not only evil words and deeds, but also good words and deeds. For the obstruction lies within themselves, since in them God has not become all things. If this were the case, they would be at peace in all places and with all people, for they would possess God, and then no one would be able to take him away from them, nor impede them in their work. I don't have anything like some stable reality of what Eckhart is describing there, but I tasted something of it, of a kind of detachment that feels true, not only for me, but for you, that I can be present for you and not for what my needs are, to feel like a good priest, to be doing a good priest thing, to be viewed as a good preacher or present with you or liked by you, or you tell your friends how good. That's not why. Of course, and we all know this, and I knew this. It's not like this is what the reality is that what I didn't think was happening by just letting go of that identity for a little bit and just being honest with myself. The truth will set you free. Always. Always. Tell the truth, whatever the truth might be. Because sometimes the truth is not good, and you don't look good in the light, and it's light. But that's all right. It's precisely in going through it, I have found, precisely in facing it and living it, that we actually experience the freedom. So it was an amazing time. I created this initially along with Debbie and the sabbatical team to fulfill an obligation, to fulfill an obligation. That's why I did it. I didn't do it because I wanted the sabbatical. I thought I needed it, or I was just crossing my fingers hoping that I would get it. I didn't have any thought at all. The only reason I went through that whole process was because I felt obligated because somebody told me about it, and then I mentioned it to Debbie. She was like, I think you should do this. And so I feel like, okay, this is a kind of and it's all obligation. Obligation, ligaments, it's like a ligament. Obligation isn't a nasty word. Ligament, it's like religio, religion, it binds. That's what obligations do, they bind us. There's good ones and bad ones, but they bind, they're not bad. And so, but that's why I did it. I didn't have expectation was gonna happen. So the thing, I was just presenting some fanciful, motorcycle ride would be cool, and go these places, whatever. So doing it was, yeah, I can't, it's too big. It's too big to describe. It was an unbelievable gift that you all gave me. Lily paid for it, but you gave me the gift to be able to do it. By that, I mean you just loved each other and kept being the church. And that allowed me to let go. Having our leaders, having Becky and Mark, our vestry, I just didn't worry. I didn't think, I didn't get online and look at the church. I wasn't looking to see what the offering was like. I let it go. I genuinely was able to let it go. And that's a large part because of who this community is. So thank you for the opportunity to do this and to have these experiences, even if in my sharing of them, if it sounds confusing to you or maybe even off-putting or concerning, absolutely please share that with me, and I want to talk about it. But letting it, for me, from my vantage point, what a gift. I feel like you all did the third thing Jesus told the crowd to do for Lazarus. Unbind him and let him go. I feel like you guys did that. You unbound me and you let me go. And that you can't find the freedom with God without one another. It's just not a solo mission. It takes all of us. And so, thank you for taking off my grave clothes, unbinding me, and letting me go on this wonderful, wonderful trip. I know we're way over, but if anybody wants to, I mean, I don't know if there's questions, comments, thoughts, whatever, or if we just want to. I got to make everything heavy, right? I mean, it can't just be fun and light. I mean, that's not who I am, right? Oh, this is going to be great. We're just going to hear about all this fun stuff. No, I'm going to talk about death and, you know, the deepest, yeah, of course I got to make it heavy.
That's what our prayers are about.
Right. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, is there any questions?
Yeah, right. You can do this again, but I think it's like 20 years. I think you have to wait, something like that. Yeah. Next one will be for Becky or Mark. That's what we should do. Yeah. I'm not going to write it. Or my Vespa. Yes.
All right, well, let me just close this in prayer. And so, Chris, thank you. And thanks for doing it. Thanks for everybody here who made everything possible, as Chris said, to support one another and keep being the church, and particularly for Mark and Becky and their stepping up the way they did to serve us, which I know is what they desired to do, what they've been gifted to do, but I appreciate what they took on for our sakes and for our fathers. So, Lord, thank you for this time of renewal, and we pray that it wouldn't be just over, but that we might have all stepped into something that will take us to new places as we go in the flow of what are the streams we've stepped into, streams of love and of companionship and growth and detachment maybe and joy and all the things we've heard today, connection with you and with one another. And that's really, I think, what is life, for the connection we have with you and with one another. And so, Lord, thank you for this, and bless our week. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Let me say one thing. Father Mark had knee surgery this week, which is why he's not here on Wednesday. He's headed home. He stayed an extra night, but he's at home, I should say. And so if anybody has, wants to reach out, I think it would be good to just share, thinking about him. Doesn't have to be a big gesture, but something. We love him and appreciate him. He does so much for all of us. And so that. And then also Susie so wanted to be here, but we both have been sick all week, and she's a little behind me on the recovery side. So she's watching from home, but she can give you the happy part, or the whatever that other part is about the parts of the trip that she was on. I know she'd be excited to share. So thank you. Yeah.
So just people can't hear. Becky asked if Chris was planning on doing a book club or anything, given some of the things he's been reading.
I mean, I would. I would. I hadn't really thought. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, some of it's I just don't know what the interest would be. I mean, it's it's like how deep do folks want to go in certain kinds of things. I think the Vedanta and Christian Faith book would be a great thing for those who might be interested in looking at Christianity in relationship to another very ancient form of belief in God. And but yeah, I don't know about that. I'm happy to, if there's interest, 100%. I never assume the kind of things that I'm always like, that people are going to want to read Schleiermacher's soliloquies. I think it would be awesome, and I would love it, but
I read Chris's thesis, by the way, and just let me warn you, want to take the blue pill or the red?
yeah.
So point being, you're open to it,
Yeah,
but I guess
absolutely.
the question would be, if people are interested in that or anything that he talked about,
Let me know.
let him know.
Let me know, and
then
if
that
there's-
can be
yeah, if there's
something that
enough.
might be pursued.
100%. Would you put a list of the books on the website? Yes, that's a great idea. I will absolutely do that. Yes. Go get a copy, Emerson.
Okay,
So that
thanks everyone for staying. I'm guessing we're gonna have a swap activation this week.
Yes.
And so
it's-
don't worry about the tables being all put back and the room being put back together. I know that's gonna defer that to later in the week, but I think
Just
we're gonna
leave the
need it set
tables
up like this anyway.
Yes.
So, thank you all.
One thing, we have lots of chicken, so I'll get out cookie bags if anyone wants to take chicken home, so.
Yeah, I think Richard left, and I don't think Sasha's here anymore, but yeah,
Or swap activation, if nobody's gonna take it, the swap folks will,
people would love that.
they would love it. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
So, yeah, okay.